Hello, everybody. Welcome to NFA Live on Thursday, as ever. So I'm joined, of course, by my friends here. Guy from Coin Bureau. Guy, how you doing?
I'm well, thanks, Rob. How are you?
Pretty good. And then Ben, back again here at NFA Live. How's things going, Ben?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Trying to get you before you come out to Bitcoin Amsterdam, and are laid out there as one of their premier speakers. Now, if you haven't gotten your tickets right now for Bitcoin Amsterdam, if you want to go, there's a link in the description. Ben will be talking over there, and maybe you can finagle him into maybe playing a game of chess against you if you're so inclined to. So, first of all, before we get into it, can we just agree that this was a fantastic, great promo done by Grok, and pretty much how the entire crypto market really is feeling? Like, the Uptober, I don't know what the heck happened to it, but it's Downtober, it seems like. And the ship seems like it's going down, but yet we're here just spewing the hopium. However, I think there's some things in the background. But I got to tell you, I thought this was fantastic that we all were able to meet up in Dubai, record this 6-second dancing video, and then off we went. So, guys, all seriousness aside, the last 30 days have been junk. And Uptober is not living up to its name by far. And there's some things that are going on in the background. When we take a look at the monthly returns, and yes, we're using this website called the Cryptoverse. You can check it out. But October, the last time it was red was 2018. And that, of course, was 1 year past the blow off top. And we hit negative 3.9%. So far this month in October, we're at -4, almost there. And if that's the truth, now there's different things, of course, obviously, because it wasn't a post-halving year. This is in 2018. This is our blow-off top. But I mean, the last time we had negative October, we also saw November negative 37 and almost negative 8% for December. So we'll see if it plays out like that. And then not only that, if we take a look at the Bitcoin market cycle bottom and the ROI after the halving, we can see that so far right now, this cycle 5, has extended past all of them as far as days go, and as well as having after the halving. And we're looking at 551 days compared to 546, 525, and 371. So let me just ask you guys at this point blank, what happened to October? Do you expect Q4 to be better, or is just this the sign of things to come? And then, Guy, I'd like to start with you on this one, and we'll pivot off to Ben, and he can use his own website. All right.
Yeah, what happened to October? I guess. Well, I mean, I think this sort of big liquidation cascade that we saw almost a couple of weeks ago now, I think that was probably the straw that broke the camel's back. But I think, I think that kind of underlines the fact that the market, the crypto market, I should say, was built on some pretty shaky foundations there. That was an awful lot of leverage had built up in the system. It's probably ultimately a good thing that has now been flushed. But we know it'll start building up again because that's what it does. So, probably something like this will happen again. But yeah, I think that was, and that was the big that was the thing that really broke the Uptober narrative. And of course, that's underlined by the fact that, that was set off, the initial selling was kind of triggered by the macro environment that we're in now. And that is, we're in Trump world now, where he does business in a very different way. And, there's a case to be made that the sort of tariffs thing has kind of worked for him. There's a case to be made that it hasn't worked, but whatever side of the fence you're on, it's certainly changed the macro environment that crypto now operates in. Crypto is becoming more intertwined with kind of regular finance. It's no longer a diverse, discrete asset class. It is becoming more and more just another asset class. So it is a lot more vulnerable to these kind of external shocks. And we're living in an age of increasing uncertainty, and Trump is kind of in large part the person to thank for that. But he's not alone. Like, I think the world is kind of heading in that direction anyway. So crypto is a lot more vulnerable to to these kind of external shocks. So I think that's basically what did for Uptober.
Got it. You know what? And it's a good point. And hopefully these external shocks, which pushes the downside, they can actually take those shocks that are positive and push us to the upside. But it seems like it only works in the downward position. However, fundamentally, things have not changed. It is the same thing with crypto. There's no double spend. Vladimir Putin didn't come out and said, I created Bitcoin, and no, the CIA didn't create it either, that I know of. So as we move forward, hopefully things get positive. Ben, what's your thoughts on this one? What happened to Uptober? I know that Bitcoin dominance past 60%. So, hey, we got that going for us.
Yeah, I saw the poll you put out, so I'm not going to say it. Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting because if you measure from the low, if you measure from the halving, kind of looks like the cycle's already spent. If you measure from the peak and you compare it to 2017, there still is a chance we get another push into December. I'm kind of the opinion that whatever's going to happen for Bitcoin will happen this year. And I feel somewhat deterministic about next year kind of being a bear market for the crypto asset class in general. And hopefully that starts from higher Bitcoin prices, right? Hopefully, but I do think that, and I've always said, I think the top's in Q4, and I think the low for next year will just be 1 year after the top. So if the top's already in, that means the low will be next October. If we can get one more rally before the cycle's over, maybe into December, then it would, in my opinion, it would mean the next low would be just December of 2026. And there have been a lot of parallels between this cycle and the the 2016, 2017 cycle. Structurally, just kind of a lot lower volatility. And in fact, there's a chart that maybe I can show really quick, because it really goes to show just how similar they are in terms of like the volatility. And so if you look at days, I guess I need to share my screen, huh?
Yeah.
It might help.
I mean, you can verbally say it. We can all mentally see it.
Paint us a picture.
Yeah. All right. Gotcha. So if you can see that. So this is like the number of days since Bitcoin's had a 50% drop. And we're currently on day 1079. And the only other cycle that looks remotely similar to this one is the 2017 cycle, right? And in that case, Bitcoin had a 50% drop from the high on day 1110, right? So that's basically another 30 days from now or so. Again, it doesn't have to be the exact same, but you can kind of see how the cycles kind of ebb and flow. Like you get one cycle with a lot of volatility to the downside, whether you get like deeper corrections, like in 2013, 2012 and 2013. Then you get one cycle with very low volatility, like 2016, 2017. And then the 2019, 2020, 2021 cycle, there was a ton of volatility. We had these major crashes to the downside. We had the major drop in 2019 with the pandemic. And we also had the major drop in May of 2021, where Bitcoin dropped like more than 50%. And then we still went on to put in a new all-time high. But this cycle looks a lot more like the 2016, 2017 cycle, right? In terms of just very low volatility. There was also, back then, there was people talking about recessions nonstop as well. And that kind of being the thing that people were the most scared about. And then eventually we didn't have a recession, and Bitcoin just kind of kept slowly working its way up. And then finally we had sort of a final rally from like mid-November until mid-December. So like I feel like I gotta go with, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I think the top's in Q4. I think you could have one more rally, but if you don't have another rally by, let's call it mid-December, then we're just not going to get one, more than likely. I will say this, as I've said before, I'm not going to say the word, Rob, but
you are messing up everybody's betting, Ben. But
I know.
Putting your thumb on the scale, that's fine.
But I will say that the only way we continue from here is if Bitcoin shows strength first, right? Like altcoins are not going to be the ones to show strength first. So I think you're generally better off with Bitcoin in terms of your crypto allocations for the next few weeks. I think you're much better off with Bitcoin. because I think that metric that Rob always talks about is about to go up a ton. Like it's approaching 60%, but I think you're going to see it skyrocket, you know, back up 63, 64. And look, I mean, it doesn't have to happen, but in some cases, I could see it going to a new, that metric going to a new cycle high, because I mean, we just saw all Bitcoin pairs go to new cycle lows, you know, just a few weeks ago. And so in the 2017 cycle, we saw them find there was major pivot levels for alt Bitcoin pairs in early November, and then again in early December. And so you might think, oh, well, early November, that's only like a week and a half away. Yeah, it is. But the problem is that there's a really high probability that that metric that shall not be named could go up a lot between now and then.
Why, Ben, why are you manipulating the markets? Just say Bitcoin discombobulance. I don't see the problem. So, hey, real quick, could you throw up that same chart that you showed us with the volatility and the minimization of it? That was it was a good one, because it was something that a lot of people have talked about as far as like with ETFs and gold. The comparison of ETF of gold in 2004, the first US ETF, and the first Bitcoin ETF, January 2024, and we can see that. If I'm looking at this right, I got to squint. 2023, yeah. So we started in 2024 with that ETF, and people were saying back then that this could lead to less volatility, and maybe things are playing out. And if it is the same thing, because if we take a look at, of course, the gold ETF, things were up and to the right. Now there was little pullbacks here and there, but maybe there's something to be said for that. And maybe as time goes on, you know, maybe we'll have an elongated cycle. But again, like you say, it's not broke, don't fix it. We'll see what happens in November. The second week isn't popping, then start to worry about it. Anyhow, so we have that piece. Let's move forward, because there was another thing. I mean, speaking of 4 or 5 year cycles, there was, Ben, I watched your video on the cycles, and it was pretty good. And you talked about how there's a lot of 4 year cycles out there. And then I saw the same thing being repeated over on Wolf of All Streets. Yeah. Melker, and you were talking about the same thing. Elaborate real quick on that, as far as like with these 4 year cycles as it compares to the traditional markets, S&P 500, also for presidential elections. And the thing that really got me is because there's an overlay here. This is from Fidelity, historical presidential cycle average versus the S&P. And they're taking a look at just not this cycle, but previous cycles. And they condense this over, gosh, for over 20, 30 years. So we have something like this, and then also US stock market returns. And even though they're not read on every 4 years like we see in the 4 year cycle, there is a reduction in valuation from the 4th year or the 3rd year to the 4th year. Anyhow, just to kind of elaborate on that real quick.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that, I'm not saying it has no effect, but I don't think that the halving is the main reason for the 4 year cycle. And the reason for that is because people that were trading markets, you know, the stock market, whatever, in the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, they were also very familiar with the 4 year cycle. And basically what it is, it doesn't tell you when the high is going to be. It tells you when the low is going to be. And the low is approximately every 4 years. So you have, you know, if you just kind of work your way backwards, you had a major low in 1982, which was a midterm year, right? A midterm year. Just like with Bitcoin, it tends to be kind of near the end of the midterm year. So you have 1982. You have, let's just go back. So then you have 1978, 1974, 1970, 1966, 1962, 1958. So you can see that, and it's not exactly right. Like in this cycle over here, it happened almost in 1954, but it might have actually been the very end of 1953. But you can see how approximately every 4 years you get these major lows. Now, that goes on for years and years and years, right? It goes on and on and on, and it goes on so much that people think it'll never break, right? And so during this time, basically from like 1949, from the end of World War II, basically until 1982, you would have been best served assuming this time was not different, right? And just assuming that every major low would be approximately 4 years apart. Now, I have to imagine that there's always someone through here shouting that this time is different, right? Every single cycle and saying why it'll be different this time. But again, we went, like 30 years with it not being different and it just being more or less the same thing over and over and over again. But then eventually it broke, right? Because, you had a low near the end of 1982, and then you didn't really have a major low near the end of 1986, right? Like you just had a consolidation phase, and then you went up, but then you still ended up putting a slightly lower low in 1987. So that ended up being a little longer than 4 years. So the argument that I'm trying to make, right, is that there's a decent chance that we are just going to be in another 4-year cycle, right? But we also have to acknowledge that at some point in Bitcoin's future, it will likely deviate from the 4-year cycle, just like we've seen markets deviate from the 4-year cycle in the past. It's just a matter of like, when does that happen? Does that happen this time or does it not? I think if we deviate this time, then 2026 could just look like sideways price action, right? Like where you're not going to, good luck convincing everyone else that it's going to be different, right? So those guys are probably going to sell and the price is probably going to stay flat. And if by the end of 2026, Bitcoin hasn't dropped, then maybe we get that big move up into 2027. But I think for me, it makes the most sense to assume if it's not broke, don't fix it, and just kind of assume that this time will not be different, just like all those 4-year cycles in the past were not different. And once every 3 decades, things might change. But again, you're always better off assuming it wasn't going to change. Like think about how many times people would have been wrecked back then, assuming that it was different. And the guy that only assumed it was the guy that always assumed it was the same would have just gotten wrecked, once, and that would have been not until 1986. And even in that case, he was sold, and then the price just stayed flat for a year. It's not like he truly got wrecked. He just basically sold, and price just went sideways for the entire midterm year. And so a lot of those people that probably sold near the post-election year bought back in, and then that led to that, that next rally in 1987, and then we still ended up getting the big crash. It just happened a little bit later. So yeah, I think you could argue that the cycles more so evolve around the presidential cycles, and it makes sense because when a president gets elected, he wants the markets to do well. If you're going to have a reset year, if in the presidential cycle, if you're going to have a reset year, the best year to do it is the midterm year. And the reason for that is because you're far enough away from the presidential election that people aren't going to remember, because everyone suffers from short-term memory loss, right? People aren't going to remember. And so you have the ability to let the markets drop in the midterm year and then run them back up in the pre-election year and the election year. And if as long as the markets have been going up for the last 12 to 24 months, people are generally in a good mood. What you don't want to happen is a crash in the election year. And that's actually what happened back in 2020, right? But again, we had a pandemic, and good luck stopping that. I mean, you no matter who was in office, the pandemic hitting would have had that. I think that same effect. But that's what you don't want to have, because when you have drops in election years, when you have recessions in election years, that usually causes the political party in office to lose power, and then the other guys get elected, right? So the best year to let the markets drop is the midterm year, because that, just gives you a lot more ease to kind of run things back up before the election.
Yeah, well said. Markets don't like uncertainty. That's really what it comes down to. So Guy, same type of thing, same question for you. And I'm going to reference that there's a couple of good, you guys put out great videos all the time. I watch them. But this one where Nick was talking about the Q4 crypto surge, and I think you guys also did one about the cycles, but then this one also, just to go back to your old point, the crypto crash, who's behind it, that was a really eye-opening type of one. So everybody, if you could, there's a link in the description for the channel. Check out those 2 videos. But just real quick, Guy, what do you think about those as far as what we just talked about, as far as the cycles and where things are going?
The more things change, the more they stay the same. Yeah. So, I don't really have much more to add than that, I'm afraid. It's like, is the 4-year cycle over? Is it not? I don't know. We'll see.
You know what? I mean? I appreciate those answers. Last week we were talking about Bitcoin dominance, and Ben was rattling off all the great information. And then you said, Rob, you got anything for him? I'm like, nope, nothing. Next question. So let's get to it. How about this then? I'm going to ask you about gold. So gold beat Bitcoin this year in ROI. Sorry, it just did. And I want to say hats off to the gold bugs out there. You guys got, you guys got kicked when you were down and you just stood the course. Congratulations. You're making those fantastic gains. Now, over the last couple of days, things are down a little bit, but I mean, that's in our world, that's like that's a Tuesday. Who cares? So gold beat Bitcoin, as the gold bug believes in the same things. The gold bugs believe in the same things we do, right? We want to get out of the system. We want to exit the matrix. We want to not have so much government. We want to have, something that actually backs and is real, because we know that the fiat's going to go to zero. The question I have is, gold just shed roughly $2.5 or $3 trillion in the last 36 hours, maybe 48 hours. That is at or more than the entire market cap of Bitcoin. What are we doing wrong to not get the Bitcoin people to hear our message, and what should we be sharing with them? Guy, I'm going to start with you because you and your channel are great educators.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, it's. I mean, I think one of the first distinctions to draw is that you point out gold and Bitcoin have really quite a lot in common. In terms of being hard assets, finite supply, very difficult to debase, etc. But I think probably there should be more kind of overlap between the gold bugs and the Bitcoiners. And do you know what? There probably is. But the nature of the internet and the nature of social media likes to pit one set of people against another, and like to put the Peter Schiffs of this world into bat for gold, and to put various of us crypto bros into bat for Bitcoin, and see who comes out on top, and make it some kind of struggle. Whereas in actual fact, most people who own a bit of gold, probably quite a few of them are sort of interested in Bitcoin. And vice versa, there'll be a lot of Bitcoiners or a lot of Bitcoin holders who hold gold as well. So, I don't necessarily think it's as adversarial as the internet likes to make it out. However, that said, that there are differences, and I think kind of where it starts is the fact that I think a lot of people are still a lot of people don't really know what Bitcoin is. They regard it as kind of magic internet money.
True.
They don't really. I wonder how many of them really appreciate the qualities of gold. Do you know what I mean? It's like, do people stop and think, I want to have gold because it's going to protect me from inflation, and it's finite. It can't just be printed out of the blue by governments, etc. Or do they just, do they see it at a more kind of base level? It's just like, this is something shiny and valuable. I want to have, I want to have it because I think its price will go up in the future. And I think a lot of people are probably still uncomfortable with the fact that Bitcoin is a digital asset. You can't hold it in your hands. You can't feel the weight of it. You can't put it under the light and watch it get all shiny. Do you know what I mean? It's a fundamentally different thing. And that's why I think, Bitcoin's future will probably be decided by people in the long run who are more comfortable with holding assets digitally. But one of the things that's been really fascinating over the last week, and I think we talked about it on last week's stream, we shared the picture of it, of people queuing outside shops in various places to buy gold. So one thing I'd say to them is, hey, you don't actually need to stand in a queue to buy Bitcoin. There's none of that. You just have to grapple with using a crypto exchange. But I think the fact that people were queuing up to hold it, that definitely seemed to be a top signal, and in respect of the kind of drawdown we've seen in gold, perhaps it was. But I think we shouldn't underestimate people's desire to have a physical object, to have something valuable that they can hold and put under the mattress or in the bank vault or in the safe or whatever. And an interesting thing was, I think Diwali was over the last couple of days, the Hindu festival of lights. And I saw a news article here in the UAE saying that jeweler shops in the UAE had sold a record amount of gold this Diwali. And and the more I thought about that, the more I thought, like, yeah, gold has these cultural ties. What is it, 5,000 years? They reckon that humans have sort of been using gold as a sort of for its monetary properties or for its store of value properties or whatever.
Right.
And I thought, yeah, that's going to take a long time. You can't replace that in a few years with some fancy digital asset, however great the qualities of Bitcoin are. 5,000 years of history. Gold has cultural associations. Gold, I think, speaks to people in a very primal way. And that, I think, is one of the reasons why it is currently way above Bitcoin in terms of market cap. And it's just about saying to people, okay, that's great. You hold some of your wealth in gold. That's a very good idea. Who do you hold it with? Is that custodied in a bank somewhere? Because if you could talk to the president of Venezuela, whose gold is currently still stuck in London vaults, I think they would have something to say about that. So where do you keep it? Do you keep it under the mattress, or and then how do you move it across borders? Try moving $1 million of gold across a border. It's not easy. I don't say that from experience, by the way, but just in case anyone was wondering. But yeah, I think it's going to take a long time to break that kind of, or to, I don't think you want to break it, but to successfully question that deep cultural association that people have with gold.
Brilliant. That's a good one. I'm going to steal that one. I'm telling you right now, what you talked about as far as like as a primal, there's something about gold and holding a physical block of gold, even a small bullion. To have something like that in your hand, you can touch it, you can see it, you can feel it, and you can trade it. Unfortunately, like you said, good luck moving that around the world. Good luck moving that from city to city if you're doing it as a method of payment. So anyhow, gold has its place. I still think it does. It's just that there's a lot of shortcomings, and that's why Bitcoin was created. Ben, that was same question for you. What are we doing wrong here? And does it really, in the grand scheme of things, does it really matter? They'll just figure out at some point, or are we saying the wrong things?
I mean, I think ultimately they trade as fundamentally different assets, right? Like Bitcoin trades more like a risk asset, which I think is a good thing. Mm-hmm. I saw kind of like a funny video of someone. It was, I think they like got Cristiano Ronaldo, like one of his prior. Do you see what I'm talking about? Where one of his prior things where he like got up and was like celebrating some of his accomplishments and like just like slow going. And they're like, and the caption is like Peter Schiff celebrating a 2x move over the last like 20 years or something.
Yeah, that's a good one.
No, I mean, like, look, I own gold. I've had it. I've owned gold for a while. I did talk about how we would likely have a correction in gold whenever silver made a new all-time high. So I think that's kind of where we are right now. I think that the hard part with convincing gold bugs to be Bitcoiners, it's like convincing Bitcoiners to be altcoiners, right? Like people are set in their ways and their minds are made up, right? Like I don't think I have any ability to, to change someone's mind. Like imagine in 20, 30 years or some new thing that comes out and people are trying to convince Bitcoiners to go to that new thing. Like, yeah, good luck, because, we're all going to just be a product of our own experience. I also think too that it's better that Bitcoin trades differently than gold, because markets are risk on far more often than they're risk off. So I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know. I do think though that the people that are in gold in general, and the reason why it makes such a big deal, like a 2x move in gold is such a big deal, is because very, very wealthy people put a lot of their money in gold, right? So it's like the wealth effect, right? A 2x move might not sound like a lot, right? If you're buying altcoins and you're putting a few $100s in altcoins and they go up 2x, like, okay, congrats, like you've paid for your food for next week, But for someone in gold, like, people that are very, very wealthy, a 2x move is a huge amount of wealth accumulated. for them. And so, you know, those people are more willing to put to put like tons of money into assets like gold because they are so convinced that over a long period of time, the price goes up and to the right. Bitcoin just hasn't been around long enough, I think, for a lot of people to agree with that, right? Or accept that as well. And so I think ultimately the way you convince people is just Bitcoin just keeps doing its thing, and then eventually people will kind of recognize it, right? But it takes many years of people being proven wrong. And even this cycle, how many people have you seen that kind of like dunked on Bitcoin throughout the cycle, but then eventually they pivoted and they changed their mind? And I've seen that happen with a lot of people. So I think a lot of the ways you convince people is, you know, Bitcoin just keeps doing its thing, and then eventually people come to the table, right? Eventually, the people that keep buying altcoins too, they see that they're just bleeding to Bitcoin, and they make the same decision. So I think you just need time is kind of how you convince people. I mean, at this point, I don't try to convince my friends or family to go buy crypto, you know, because it's never a winning thing, because you won't convince them to buy it at low prices. They'll only listen to you at high prices, and when they buy it at high prices, they'll blame you when it crashes. So there's no really great reason, I think, to try to convince people, at least personal people.
It's great if you want to alienate them for Thanksgiving. That's pretty much the only good thing.
Yeah.
So anyhow,
here we are. We found crypto's use case: alienating your loved ones so as you can have a more low key Thanksgiving.
The ones you don't like, there's a big difference. All right, so everybody, so that will conclude just the Q&A part. Oh, there was one question. It's just a throwaway question. If you had one sponsor for your channel, who would it be? And this could be an individual, or this could be a corporation. It could be an institution. If you could just get one perfect partner for your channel to always talk about and be like, this is my partner. These are the ones that prop up in the cryptoverse. I'm very happy, or Coin Bureau. So who wants to take this one?
I feel like for me, like I feel like I mean, I've never done that before, but I feel like it'd have to be something that it'd have to be like a company that makes a product that I already use, that I find valuable, right? Like, is that what you're essentially asking? Like, if you had a sponsor, who would it be?
Right. Like, let's say it's like, I don't know who the world famous chessboard makers are. They're like, Mr. Cowan, we need to advertise on your channel. Have you ever used our chessboards? Yes, they're the best of all time.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like that.
Right. Yeah. So I feel like it'd have to be something I'm passionate about, right? Like, or I use a lot. Like, obviously, I really like chess. I also really like other sports. I like soccer. I like tennis. I like disc golf. I mean, I also really like watching a lot of sports, basketball, follow the NBA a lot. Also like Apple. Like, I mean, Apple, good luck getting them to sponsor you, but like, I mean, I use Apple products, right? Like, I have an iPhone, I have a MacBook Pro, I have a Mac Studio. Like, I mean, I just like all this stuff I use are Apple products because I think they're, I used to use PCs. Yeah, I used to go with other things, and I've even gone with I've used Ubuntu before, like Linux operating systems. But at the end of the day, like I felt like because I got familiar with Linux back in grad school, it made transitioning over to Apple products just so easy because you can access like all the same stuff or a lot of the same stuff. So yeah, I mean, something like that. I don't drink coffee or tea at all. I hate the taste. I also, I know this is sacrilegious, but I also hate the taste of beer. Yeah. So, yeah, I know.
Well, that just bombs out.
I don't know, like so maybe like a beverage that I like. I don't know, like I would never have, some of these like scammy crypto things. I mean, I get reached out to by like 10 times a week, someone wanting me to promote some random crap that they've created. And then I usually ignore them. And then like a week later, I go back and look, and the message is gone because their account was deleted for violating terms of service and stuff. So yeah, it's got to be something that I already use and I find value in.
It makes sense. Tim Cook, if you're listening, DMs are open for Ben.
Except for one exception. If Satoshi wanted to sponsor me, I would accept that.
Okay. Yeah. If Satoshi himself or herself or themselves. Guy, same question. What's like the ultimate for you?
Maybe the World Gold Council.
Oh, there we go. I'll take that. World Gold Council, WEF.
Maybe BlackRock. They've captured everything else, so maybe. I don't know. I mean, we have brand partners. We've got brand partnerships with BitGet and Tangent at the moment. They're both great. But I was, I was sort of thinking about this whilst Ben was talking. Maybe we could onboard into the Cryptoverse. The premier data platform in all of crypto.
Yeah.
Look at this. Deals being made. Deals being made. This is awesome. Here we go.
Yeah. Welcome to Deals Live. But yeah, in terms of other sort of in terms of other products I use, I don't know. Maybe it would just have to be a brewery then, seeing as Ben's not gonna bite on that. I don't mind the taste of beer.
So you know what you should do? You should launch your own brewery, and then sponsor. Yeah, that's how you do it, Guy.
Brew Bureau.
So Coin Bureau. Yes.
No. What did you say, Rob?
Brew Bureau.
Yeah.
Brew Bureau. Okay.
Brew Bureau. The BB. Everybody likes BB.
Our first beer could be called what? No
guarantees. What is it?
Dominance.
Would you like the dominance? Its alcohol level is 9%. Yeah, exactly.
It's 9%. It's bright orange, and it'll knock you off, knock you down.
If someone orders some like an altcoin, you just bring them a Shirley Temple or something.
And then you say, "Ha rug pull," and then you're just like, "There's no alcohol in that." Excellent. All right, so I learned some things about you guys today. That is fascinating stuff. Everybody, if you're not following Guy and Ben, which I doubt that very much, there's a link in the description. Now let's roll into, first of all, I'm going to give away a Tangent wallet. I want to say that I know that markets haven't been stellar and everybody's kind of feeling down. So I said, let's do like a quick giveaway. And the 3 people, before we get into the Q&A, that said, I'll take one, Jay, Steve, Spark, and Jaime. The first one of you 3 that puts your X handle in the comments wins the Tangent wallet, and I'll send it myself. So anyhow, Jamie, Spark, Jay, Steve, the first one to put their X handle, I'll reach out to you on Twitter. Or if you want to give me your address and your phone number and your Coinbase password, that's fine. We'll take it here too. Just kidding. Don't do that. So that's it for today, everybody. Let's get into some quick Q&As. We got to get out of here. It's getting late. So I already started some. Okay. Peter asks, will ETH Bitcoin recover to 0.05?
Ben, this is you.
This is not me and Guy. Come on.
That's kind of, that is, it's possible. I don't think it's going back to 0.08 anytime soon. Maybe not ever, but I think 0.05 is possible. I think that's a possibility. I mean, the current down move that ETH Bitcoin is currently in is a very seasonal move, and I would not expect ETH to rally against Bitcoin until it's going to happen. I think either early November or early December. So one of those two. And what it could be, what it's more likely to be, is a rally in early, sometime in November, but then another drop, kind of probably back down to where it is, the lows, not the cycle lows, but just like whatever low it's about to set, or even slightly lower. So if it's going to happen, it'll either be in early November or early starting in early December, and then come 2026, I wouldn't. Generally speaking, if you're going to hold crypto in midterm years, you're better off holding Bitcoin than essentially anything else.
Yeah,
which is the same true as like literally there's like only 1 month of the 4-year cycle where that's not true.
Yeah. So mid-December, everybody, wait for it. Guy, there's a specific question for you. Do you think, and this goes back to that video you did, do you think all these manipulations by Binance and Trump will affect the retails coming to market? Because I just saw another one, the Melania coin and whatever other coin. I think one of the guys that does, what is it, the Solana DEX or something, Meteora G is going to be on the chopping block, and maybe there's some legal ramifications. And What's your thoughts on this? Because you've done videos on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think this kind of stuff just reinforces the idea in a lot of people's minds that crypto is grift. That was my big takeaway from the whole Trump and Melania thing. And yeah, like everything we've seen around this exchanges, people who might sort of follow the space but aren't really into it or whatever, or might be crypto curious, I think they look at stuff like this happening from the sidelines and they go, there you go. There you go. It's all about scams and, rug pulls, and it's just a load of nonsense at best and dangerous at worst. And it's like, it's tough having to counter that, because every time you try to outline the benefits that crypto can bring and the cool things that are being built, someone comes along and just perpetrates some great big scam, and you're like, yeah, there's a lot of that too. So yeah, it does affect retail, and I think it's very, very difficult to change people's minds. And as I've said many times before, I don't think a lot of people have ever really changed their position on crypto since 2022, courtesy mostly of Mr. Sam Bankman-Fried. And like one of my hopes for this cycle was that we might be able to change that, and that we might be able to convince some people that there's a lot more to crypto than, just bad guys doing bad things and getting rich off the back of it. But unfortunately, we haven't managed to do that. Whether that's whose fault that is a topic for another live stream, but that hasn't come to pass, which is one reason retail have not returned in force. Yep.
I think we had our chance with meme coins and they all got burned because the VCs burned them. And then, and they're not going to forget that. But on the flip side, maybe Ben's right. Maybe the short-term memory does evaporate and they come back. We'll see, but we pretty much torched them last time. So here we are. And lastly, we need to get out of here. I'll just leave this with Tukash. It's lovely as always to join you three. One of my favorite times. I hope you're all well, and the same goes for your loved ones. Take care. Everybody take care. It's not the end-all, be-all. The markets will still be here, so go outside and touch grass, sand, snow, or dirt. That's it for today. So everybody, follow Ben and Guy. I will get to the person who put in their Twitter account or their X account. Tangent card is coming. That's it for today. Thanks, everybody. Next week, we're on Guy's channel. Yeah. So we'll see you on that one. Thanks, everybody. Adios.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.